It is a great zchut, a great honor and a privilege to introduce Rav and Rebbitzin Posen. We're here in your beautiful home in Kiryat Sefer in Israel. And Rav and Rebbitzin, you have the most amazing story, how you related. If you could tell us a little bit about your illustrious, your very special mishpacha.
Well, you go. I've got nothing. You can talk.
Huh?
You can talk.
About the mishpacha, just a little bit about
With the mishpacha, I'll tell you, the earliest I know was 300 years ago, in 1780s I think it was, yeah. We lived, that means my ancestors lived in the town of Posen on the German-Polish border, so to say. It changed hands, over Poland, but it was Western Poland, yeah. And he must have lived there 350 years ago because his parents were there already, right? And one day in the summer of must be in the 1780s. So in the summer, yeah, there was a pogrom a few days before Tisha B'Av, and they did a lot of damage them in the town of Posen, but he got saved. But there was another pogrom before Pesach, yeah, and they took everything people had, but he survived with his family, yeah, and he fled and he arrived in Frankfurt on Main just before Pesach. And the story goes that he says he made a neder that if he comes back and he's going to print one of the famous books for the benefit of the community. And in the preface of the book he writes exactly what had happened, how they plundered and killed and everything. But he got it established again in Frankfurt, and that was a tov pay, something like this, in 5480 something, yeah, about 300 years ago, yeah. And then, of course, generation after generation they called themselves Posen because the town where they came from. That's where our name comes from, right? Yeah. So the were Rabbonim every generation come out, yeah. And our combined great-grandfather, right, he was a Dayan in Frankfurt, together with his brother, right, and he had a number of sons, but what happened is, yeah, they weren't allowed to get married because the king didn't allow Jews to get married, only the oldest in the family. So he got married very late. He got married at 48, and he married his niece, who was 16.
And he was 48.
16. They lived 16 years, and he was Nifta. He died at the age of 64. Yeah, and she was only 32. So a young woman really, and she had no panosa, nothing to think. So the community felt indebted to them because the father was a Dayan, right? So they gave some money to start a small shop, and that was a shop doing silverware, spoons, forks, everything. In olden times, no stainless steel. On Shabbos you had silverware, right? Koises and other things. So it was very difficult, but people came, and Almona with Yisoimim, etc. But she told the children, the first time people come in, it's Almona with Yisoimim. Yeah. Second time they must come back because we've got better wear than other people. We give better prices. Don't. Can you press answer it? Don't depend on charity. Yeah, you must earn. And the oldest was, I think, 16, and the youngest was very small, right? And that's how the thing starts. Yeah. So our grandfather were brothers. The great-grandfather one who was a Dayan, but they, of course, were Yisoimim, were the thing. right? And then the family, we lived in Frankfurt, most of us, although someone went to Berlin to put a silver shop there because they supplied to the Kaiser even, right? But her grandfather didn't want to go into the business. Yeah, he wanted to learn, so he went to Hungary, and then he became a Dayan in Frankfurt. That's how it is. So her father followed afterwards. It was a Dayan just before Hitler came. At the end, now you continue.
And the first time, what is your first, when you met each other, you were...
We were children. I tell you what happened. Yeah, on the 1st of September 1939, the Germans invaded Poland. Now the British sent an ultimatum: if you don't get out in 48 hours, we start war. That was the 3rd of September on the Sunday. But 3 million children were transported on that Friday, the 1st of September 1939, from London to all the provinces, villages and small towns, because they expected London to be bombed to bits within days, like Warsaw was bombed to bits. Right? So the 3 million children were taken. That day there were no trains, only for children to go out. Nobody could travel. Right? And we both came to a small place in Bedfordshire called Shefford.
We were all lined up because we didn't know exactly which day we would go. Either Wednesday and Thursday we had to be ready, and then Friday they said, today they have everybody has to go.
You've heard Rabbi Schinfeld, of course. Yeah. He, a young man, but he had all the burden of that on his shoulders. A 27-year-old man that to provide food, to provide care, and everything. Yeah.
So that was just a Jewish children. It was 500 children, all lined up.
They read out all the names alphabetically. There were 15 of us. They were 7 and we were 8. With all our family, yeah. So when it came to read Posen so, they said the school is poisoned. But it's all written in the book of Dr. Judith Grünfeld. She writes Shefford, it was called Shefford, yeah. But then we came that Friday. We came and we were taken like sheep at the thing. 2 people in that house, 3 people in that house. Yeah, we arrived Friday afternoon just before Shabbos, but Goyim. I lived with, we were 2 little boys, myself and my younger brother. Yeah, I was 11 and he was 8 or 9, right? And we were there standing there. We didn't know what to do, right? I remember I had half an orange left from the food we got on the train, right? Go to make Kiddush, right? What are you going to make Kiddush for? We were standing in the street. I took the half an orange. We were Kiddush for half an orange. Little children, yeah. But I tell you, this Kiddush half an orange for 3 little children. The 2 of us and the 3rd one, probably was worth more in heaven in Shemayim than all the Kiddush we read later, right? And now you continue telling.
Rav, can I just ask, do you remember, did you meet each other before? Did you know each other a little bit?
In the school.
No.
We met, we were relatives after all. My father and her father were very close. They were not brothers, were cousins, but they lived as brothers, yeah? They grew up together, right? So we were fortunate that we came to England not as refugees. Father was bigger than us. Her father came as a refugee, so they had nothing to eat, nothing. So he used to be in our house. He used to teach us and get a bit of panosa through that. Yeah? We called him uncle, although he wasn't truly an uncle. He was just a cousin from our father, but we called him uncle. Yeah?
And Rav, where were you born?
I was born in Frankfurt. And she was born in Frankfurt. But I left in 1932 and she left in 1938. End of 38.
So I was 7 when we came to England. I was 7. And he was 11 when he came to England.
I was 11 and a half when I came.
And Rebbitzin, what do you remember about Frankfurt? Do you have any recollections?
A little, when did, I think, I remember Simchas Torah, and that I can remember. And I remember when I went to school. Now that I do remember, my first day of school. I was 6.
It was a Jewish school?
Yes, it was a Jewish school.
And you have recollections of Frankfurt as well?
Yes, but I left Frankfurt, was 4.5, not even 4.5 yet.
Because you went to
much earlier. But one I remember one thing. My brother was born on the first day Pesach, yeah, in 1930. Was 1930? Yes, right? Yeah, and it was Pesach, but at that time was the Shabbos. It was the Shabbos that year. Yeah, so my mother walked over on that Shabbos morning to the hospital, and we were allowed to visit her on Pesach in the hospital. But as a boy of 2.5, yeah, I remember there was no sweets or candies on Pesach. Yeah, so we each got a cube sugar. I remember that I was 2.5. You know, a little thing like that, but more I don't remember. Right? Later on, I remember a few other things, but that's the earliest memory I've got from Frankfurt.
And which kehillah? It was Samson Raphael Hirsch?
Yeah.
The kehillah that your parents were involved in?
What was it called?
The IEG, Israelitische, that's a Schule or whatever it was called. Rabbiner Hirsch's kehillah. Yeah.
Rabbi Hirsch's kehillah.
Yeah. His son-in-law took over, Rabbiner Boyer. Yeah, but it was called Austrittsgemeinde, if you know what that means.
And you and your family, you were...
Yeah, both. Her father, in the beginning, was one of the rabbis in the yeshiva, right? But when his father was Nifta in 1932, right, end of 32, he took over and became Dayan. Because his father was Dayan in 1880s under Rabbiner Hirsch. Yeah, he was there in 40 years or more, right? He was there, right? And it seems to be a very strong character in the killer.
And Rebbitzin, can I ask, what do you remember of the school, going to the school?
Well, I remember the name of the lady. She was called Kurzweil. Fräulein Kurzweil.
I couldn't leave you. I give it the thank you,
Kurzweil. And she was, we only stayed there until I was 6, and then 1.5 years later, then we had to, in 1938, we left the school. We left England altogether.
And how old are you when you left Germany?
I was 7. And I 7.5, because when I was just 6, in Germany they start there, you could only begin school at 6, age 6 after Pesach, and then 18 months later I left, and we went to.
So Rebbitzin, being in Frankfurt,
yes.
What do you remember of your home or your parents or grandparents?
We didn't have a house which it was rented. I remember we used to have about my parents got married, and then after 5 years later they rented a flat, and then 5 years later, or roughly, they got another flat. And then 5 years later, another flat. Because I remember the second and third one. I remember. We went when we had to. My parents decided they needed a bigger flat. So we had our home, our furniture. It was unfurnished. So we went and we went to another flat. I remember. That's what I remember. Yeah.
And siblings? Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, we were 7. Four daughters, 4 sisters, and 3 brothers. And they were with us. They came out of Germany with my mother. My father had to. Now, when I'm talking about after the Kristallnacht.
Do you remember Kristallnacht?
That I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to ask you. Do you remember? Even before Kristallnacht, do you remember the German soldiers marching, or the Kinder?
I do remember sometimes our
Hitler Youth. Do you remember?
Not really, not soldiers marching, but I do remember sometimes my brothers they took off their hats, you know. But I don't really remember exactly what soldiers marching.
Were you scared to go outside?
I don't think, as a child, I was so scared. Not really. I didn't really.
And did you ever have any incidents that happened to you?
No. I remember my parents. Somebody said to my mother, "Take that little one. She should go and get bread and things like that." That was one of my sisters, because she was fair and she had blue eyes. And the rest of us, we looked more Jewish, so they looked. So she was that, and I remember something else. Our sukkah, we had to have grating on it because they were afraid they would throw stones. That I remember. That we had grating on the windows, that it shouldn't be smashed, you know, by the goyim.
And do you remember the Beit Knesset, the shul?
The what? Well, I saw it later. The shul. But I don't know all the. I saw pictures of it, but I can't remember personally.
And your school? Do you remember going your school? Do you remember your teachers or?
Just we had a normal schooling, but when things got very when it was after that time, we couldn't go to school anymore. A few days, and then we had to go. We were already in December, about 5 weeks after Kristallnacht, we left.
Okay, and what happened on Kristallnacht? What do you remember?
I do remember that my father, they told him, "Don't go home, don't go out," because he said you're going to be. You're in danger. So he stayed. I know he stayed, and I also remember that he wasn't home, but he was hiding in an attic. There was an attic which was one room that led to another one, and to another one. He was there, and I remember one Shabbos afternoon. He wasn't with us. My parents, my mother, and my children were here, and I remember she told one of my sister she should wash up a plate and a knife and a fork and spoon, because my father, he was eating with us, and the sister, she was watching the whole time. She was watching the window. And then when he went up again into the attic, then my mother said that my sister should wash up, so that if anybody comes, then they'll see there's only eight people and not 9 people. Because that's I remember. That's what I remember. And he was hiding, and then a few days later he had to have a passport, and I had a brother-in-law. He had a brother-in-law who had a British passport, and he lent my father his passport. And there was a lady who was, I think she was. She was accompanying him. Then he had to go from the house to the station, and from there he had to go to Holland. Now, while he was from the house to the station, he must have been dressed up, because he shaved his beard, and but I didn't see it, but I was told straight away. And then when he got to the station, he must have changed, because then he had the British passport of his brother-in-law, and then on British passport he went to Holland, and for 4 weeks he stayed with my husband's family, Posen, also Posen. And those 4 weeks we were still in Frankfurt. And we weren't really bothered, because it was my mother and the children. And then my mother, she tried to get ready for, she tried to get some clothes and things. And I remember, and then on Hanukkah, on the 4th day of Hanukkah, we left. We left Germany, and we went to Hook of Holland. We also traveled to Holland. And then...
Do you remember the day that you left?
I know it was the 4th day of Hanukkah, that I do.
Do you remember
I think one of my children...
leaving your home?
That part I can't remember. No.
And what about your family, your uncles and aunts?
No, I'm afraid my mother was one of 10 girls. They had no boys, only girls. And only 3 of them survived. My oldest auntie and my mother and the younger one, Bamberger. Those 3 came to England, and the others were, one of them was Nifta when she was a young girl, 18, with a Spanish flu. She was Nifta, and another one, and the others were killed. Were all killed with their husbands and children. But my
and
father,
what about your papa and your Seder?
I wasn't, when I had my mother's father, he was Nifta very early on, before in 1924 already, long before I was born. And the other 3, my father's 2 and my mother's 2, that within 1 year, those 2, and I was a toddler. I don't remember any of them.
And are they buried in Frankfurt?
Yes, they're buried.
So they're Kforim in Frankfurt?
Yes, those are all there, yes. But I can't remember them as grandparents. I don't remember them, no. Yeah, and that was very, I mean, I feel, when I see, Baruch Hashem, my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I don't even remember my grandparents. No. It didn't have, yeah.
And Rebbitzin, can I just ask you, when your father left,
yes,
did your mother tell you that your father's gone?
Yes, he told she never told us where they were, because she told us a terrible story that there was another family, and they asked the Nazis, they asked them, where's your father, and they all said, don't know, and then the little child said, he's in the cellar. And then they found him and they shot him. We were told this, so my mother never told us where he was. We knew he was somewhere. I think I remember once she was bringing a Havdalah candle. He wanted the Havdalah candle on Motzei Shabbos, and I remember my older brother and sister. They said. She didn't say where she's going, so she said she had to go to the post office or something. So they said she didn't go to the post office with a Havdalah candle, but she did not know where they were. So, but when he came to Holland, she sent they're saved. I don't know how she managed to get a letter or a message that he was safe. And he didn't go out. He stayed. Yeah.
Rebbitzin, when the Nazis came to power,
yeah.
Do you remember that at all, or do you remember?
No, I can't. I was too small. I can't really remember what they did.
And then Kristallnacht, do you remember any noises, or do you remember fires? Or?
I don't know much. I don't know that. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly what happened, because I personally I wouldn't have seen it, but. I knew about it. I didn't really.
And when your father went, your mother had to make a living. She had to.
It was very, very hard. For some weeks, we had the family Khan. They had a father, a mother, and they had grown-up sons, twins. That's all they had. That's the family that they had. No, and this family, when we arrived with our 7 children and my parents, they came to us Friday on that evening, and they gave us a supper. And then 2 of us children, we went straight away to an aunt of mine. She was a daughter-in-law of also this Khan, this Sam Khan. And another 2, I don't know exactly who they went to. And then my parents and 3 children, and my parents, they till Pesach, from Hanukkah till Pesach, they went with these Khans, Mr. and Mrs. Khan, Oscar Khan. They had a printing Khan, they were called, yeah.
And Rebbitzin, can I ask, when you left on Hanukkah,
Yeah.
do you remember that day? Do you remember going on the train?
I remember my mother saying, to tell us, don't say anything. Don't say anything if they ask you anything, just don't start talking to them. And then I also remember that it probably is not illegal and it's not halacha either, but I think it was fourth night of Hanukkah, and I think one of my oldest boy, and I think he put on Hanukkah lights in the train. Yeah, that part I remember. Yeah.
And how did your mother manage to get all the certificates and the passports?
Well, we had, apparently, yes.
You had before?
We had. But it was in Harwich, but it was snow, and I think we were hours and hours. We had to wait till we get another train to London.
But going from Germany to,
I remember we went on the sea voyage, and I remember about 12 o'clock midnight, and then we were on the boat, and then about 4 o'clock.
Do you remember the boat trip?
I remember we all threw up, every single one of them. We had four of us, 4 girls in one cabin, and my mother and the 3 boys on the other cabin. And I remember we all threw up. Terrible. There was no stabilizers, I think, there on the boat, and we just all vomited, all of us.
And
that I remember.
When you were in Frankfurt,
yeah.
What did you speak at home? Was it Yiddish or German?
German, proper German.
And Yiddish? Did you ever speak?
No, we never spoke Yiddish. I only spoke German, yeah. My father never spoke Yiddish with us. We all spoke German, yeah.
And how did you manage to come to England? Did anybody sign surety that you could come?
Yeah, we must have had. I think we did. We had friends, and I'm sure every one of us, every family had a security, because the government, they wouldn't allow everybody to come except for children. A lot of children came.
That was on the
Kindertransport. But we came with our family. But somebody must have, and we had.
And what could you take? Do you remember taking a case?
Yeah, we had a sort of case, and I remember cutlery maybe. I don't know what we could take.
Did you take any of your own toys or anything?
That I can't remember. I don't think so. Only a little. I had my little brother said he had a mouse, a toy mouse. That I remember. He wanted to have. He was 4. My youngest brother was 4, and the oldest brother was 14.
And how old were you when you left Germany? When you left?
7. I was 7.
And your friends that you went to the gun with, to the school with,
did
you manage to say goodbye to any of them?
No.
Do you know what happened to any of those friends?
I only know of one. She was nifta 2 weeks ago. Ehrentreu, she was called. And she was one of my childhood friends in Germany, and then later on she lived here in England, but I don't remember the names of any of the children, none of them. I don't remember them. No.
Were you a little bit sad to leave, or was it an adventure? How did you feel when you were leaving?
I was a child. Yeah. And I suppose, I don't know whether I was sad to leave. I don't think so. Probably with my parents.
But did you know what was going on with the Germans and with the Nazis?
I think if you think about a child, I don't really know what was going on. We knew the Goy and the terrible people, but I couldn't say. I mean, when I was adult, I happened to, I don't really know. I don't remember that part, no.
And that voyage, when you got to England?
Yeah. And then a few weeks later, I went to school.
But when you came to England,
yeah,
where did you land when you got to England?
Well, I and my one sister, we went straight away to my auntie.
In London?
In London, yeah.
Where were they staying, in Stamford Hill? Or?
In Stamford Hill, yes, near the old Adas. There was an old Adas. It was very near there. That's why my sister and I, we went with that auntie, uncle and auntie. Yeah.
And when did you see your father again?
When we came to London, the next day we saw him.
You must have been very happy to see him.
Yes.
And you remember that encounter when you were reconnected?
Yes, we were very, very happy to see him. Everything, Baruch Hashem, was yes. Yes.
And you couldn't stay all together as a family?
No, we couldn't, because it was 9 of us. We couldn't. We had to find somewhere, and very soon my parents and 3 children, they got a little flat in London, and my father used to give some shiurim, you know, so he had a bit of money, and because he wanted to pay back of all his friends who had lent, so my father, he looked, yeah. And then later on, my mother, she had a sort of boarding house, and that was their panossa.
And where did she stay?
Afterward, I'm talking about now, during the war, that's what. Yes, we were in a place called Dorking in Surrey. It was about 25 miles from London.
This is when you were evacuated?
No, after. I was only evacuated only for 3 months. Only 3 months, but after that, in 3 months, we had a house, and then we went to where that's where we lived for the next 5.5 years. That's where we lived.
And where is it?
In Dorking. We didn't have a Jewish school there. That was a Goyish school, and we lived in that very big house. We and a few families.
Were there other Yidden? Was it a?
They also came from London. They came to, you know, but it wasn't we didn't have sometimes we had a minyan and sometimes we didn't have a minyan.
Was there a Beit Knesset or a shul?
No, they used to come in our house. They made a shul, my father made a shul in our house. If we had a minyan, then we had, I remember, we used to make a mechitza, you know, the curtain for the ladies, yeah.
And you managed to, with the food, was it difficult to get
food? Food we had to get from London, and bread we got. It wasn't kosher bread, and fruit and vegetables and fish. What we did, but things like, well, I don't know how much there was of food for kosher food, manufactured food.
And going to the school.
Yeah.
It was a Goyish school?
Yes, a Goyish school.
Was it difficult to go?
No, it wasn't.
You got on well with the children?
Yes, we got it.
And coming from Germany,
yeah.
When did you start to learn to English?
I know, that I did. I remember I had a teacher, she gave me a little dictionary, and she said, this is ein deutscher Wörterbuch. She tried to sort it. She gave me a little dictionary, and they were very nice to me, very nice. We were proper Goyish school. Actually, I remember one girl, I asked her, I tried to whether she's Jewish, and she said yes, but then I didn't know how to express myself to say whether she's religious or not. I didn't know it, but she said she's Jewish, but I don't think she kept anything. So probably there could have.
And Rebbitzin, how did you manage to learn English, to communicate, to go to school? It must have been very difficult.
It was difficult, but I think children they learn it. They learn as they hear it. I think. I imagine my parents would have spoken to us in German, and as the years went on, we knew English. My English is now much better than my German, because I was just a child till 7. I heard Germany, and then I thought after.
And the Goyish school, the non-Jewish school that you went to.
Yeah.
You got on well with the other children.
Yes, we got on well, but in the high school in England, You have till 11, from 11 to 16. We had a man say once, one of them said to me, "Are you a member of the chosen race?" My brother said I should have said, "Yes, are you jealous?" But of course, you couldn't have said that. And also my sister, he said, "I'm Leah, what is your Christian name?" There was a little bit of anti-Semitism there, but otherwise, we were they were going, yeah.
And did all your siblings go to the same school?
No, well, my sister, she didn't go to school anymore because she was 14 and she didn't go to school anymore. And the younger sister and the younger children, we went to school. And my oldest brother, he also went to school because he wanted to have his matriculation. He also came to the same school. And then he went to yeshiva. The other one of the brothers, yeah.
Which yeshiva did he go to in?
He was in Manchester. He was in Manchester at that time, yeah. But after that he...
And Rebbitzin, did you make friends with the Goyim, with the non-Jewish children?
I liked some of them, but I never went to their house because we knew they were Goyim, so we didn't. I had only one that was after the war. Then I had Mrs. Stern, the one who you interviewed.
Glassman.
We were together. We were in the school after when I was 14, the war ended, and then we went back to London. And for the 2 years, from 14 to 16, I was in the school with Mrs. Stern, Blanca Stern.
And was this in Stamford Hill?
That was in Stamford Hill, yeah. As I remember her. And otherwise, I didn't know any of them.
And your father, was he taken in by the Kehillah, to the Jewish Kehillah in London, or
when he came to London, they made him a dayan, and that was his, yeah. He was after, and he started a lot of the Kadassia, the food manufacture. He was very much involved in the
Kadassia.
In the Kadassia, yeah.
And was your parents, were they close with Rabbi Schoenfeld?
They knew him, yes. This is him. Rabbi Schoenfeld. He's on there. They knew him, yes. They were at school.
And do you remember Rabbi Schoenfeld?
Yes, I remember him very well. I remember him.
Did he ever come to the home, or did?
I remember him from shul because when we used to go. That's right. That's Rabbi Schoenfeld.
So if you can show, who is in the picture? I know there's Rabbi Schoenfeld.
This is Rabbi Rabinov. And this Rabbi Baumgarten. This is Rabbi Rabinov, and this is Rabbi Schoenfeld, and this is Rabbi Shlomo Baumgarten. He is from 69, also in Stamford Hill. Yeah.
It's a lovely picture.
Yes, I knew him very well, Rabbi Schoenfeld. Yes.
And looking back, it's nice that your family decided to leave Germany, that you never stayed behind.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you ever ask your parents what made them decide to leave?
I think they knew, because they knew it was that or being killed. They really, because especially my father, but he was a dayan, and they knew that people, they were trying to get hold of him. So we knew we had to leave. It wasn't a choice of shall we or not. Once it's about Kristallnacht, we knew we had to leave. And 5 weeks later, we left.
And after, I'm just going back to that Kristallnacht.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day after, or a few days after
the destruction of the shul, the burning, or the shops
I
being...
don't remember so much as much. I saw a lot of pictures, but I don't remember walking because I don't think we were there. I don't think the schools were also disrupted once. You know, when I don't think we had school after that because some people were. I think the schools were disrupted. It was a proper Jewish school, and yeah.
And Rebbitzin, when did you meet your husband?
Well, I knew him because his father was sort of an invalid, more or less invalid, and we often used to go there. My parents used to go there, and I came as well for Shalasudas time in the summer, and sometimes he was there. But I never knew of him as a maybe as a husband. And then one of my brothers, he told us to have he suggested the shidduch, and that's how we got. But we just thought they're like cousins, you know. And that's how we. Yeah.
And how old were you when you decided to get married?
20. Yeah, got married just before 21, before I was 21. I had actually three areas. From 0 till 7 I was in Germany, and then from 7 till 14 was the end of the war. I went to London, and then from 14 to 21 I was a girl in London, and then I got married.
And where were you living in that town before you got married?
Also in Stamford Hill.
Stamford Hill.
Same area, just a few minutes away from where we got married.
And your husband was living in Stamford Hill as well?
Also very near, yeah. And then he was in yeshiva, but then afterwards from his house to our house, we were very, very near, yeah.
And when your brother suggested the shidduch?
Yeah. Then we just sort of, and then we got married.
And you got married in Stamford Hill?
In Stamford Hill, yeah.
It must have been a very special chasana.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And what year were you married?
1952.
Okay, it's amazing.
1952, that's right. And then my father-in-law was nifta already in 1954, beginning 1954, and then my mother was nifta already in 1956, 2 years later. And my father lived in our house. After my mother was nifta, my father came into our house. We had 2 little children at that time, and then the other children were all born while he was in our house, except for the youngest one. The youngest one was called Eliezer, and my father was called Eliezer. That's it, that was my father. This one here. Rav Posen, who was here. You see this one? That was my father, that's right.
So special, Rebbitzin.
Yeah.
Just take that one.
And that's his brother.
If you could just show, this is so special.
Yeah. That's a photo.
And he was a Dayan in the London-based inn?
Yes, in the London, not London-based inn, it was called the Adas,
Adas.
Union, yeah.
And the picture below is
That
your...
is the next brother, Shimon, my uncle.
And was he also...
No, he became Hasidic.
Became Hasidic?
Yeah, and then he was in America, and he was nifta about the same as just before my father, 7 months before. Yeah, my father was in 1969. He was nifta, and he was just six months before that. He was nifta. The younger one was nifta.
So special, sure. And Rebbitzin, when did you decide to come to Eretz Israel?
About we decided, once the children were all married, we decided to come, and then I remember saying to my husband, what if we don't like it? So he said, so we can come back to England. Yeah, we are very, very happy to be here.
And you're happy that you came?
Oh yes, very much so, yeah.
So
The war I
Rebbitzin,
can see I've really, the war, I lived it from 8 till 14, so I knew everything about the rationing, and the blackout. We had to have, you had all the windows always had to be dark. You were never allowed to have windows, because of those planes, the enemy planes would see lights, and there were air raid wardens. They used to say, you've got a light there, and you had to have, everything had to be blocked. There was no lights, and the cars, there were hardly any cars, but buses, they had to have blue lights. It was very, very difficult. It was very hard. And rationing, I had rationing, everybody had a book with, and everybody was allowed to have you couldn't buy things like eggs and butter, and you just had to have what was available. Yes. So people had the sweets, couldn't have sweets. And I'm not talking now about the cashless ones, but they couldn't have, they couldn't have whatever. Yeah.
and you remember the bombers, the German bombers?
Yes, but we were not in London. We were in Dorking. It was on the direct line. So very often we heard the sirens, which we had to have sirens. Whenever there were bombers coming, we had this the sirens like here. But when they were gone, it was called what they called the all clear, and that was a long siren. And there was one during 1940. Every single night there were bombs, and so once I remember, when we came from school, they told us there was one, a family, young they were called, and they had a direct hit, and they were killed. That was in Dorking. In Dorking. But it was unusual, because usually the bombs, they went to London from the continent. But on that day they were
But there was also in Stamford Hill, there was a direct hit.
I wouldn't have been there because we were, yes, there was.
It was a Jewish family that were
That's
there.
right, yeah. And Jewish, yeah. That was very hard. Yeah. Yeah.
And being from Germany, did any of and having a bit of a German accent, did any of the British children look at you as a foreigner, or?
Well, we maybe as children, I remember my parents went to night school, evening classes. They to learn English because they were German, and so they learned English a little bit. And but when we had a foreign accent, I suppose they did. I don't know. I don't think that anybody was bothered about it. But it learned once. I can't remember the day when we sort of decided that we can speak English now and not German, but I suppose we learned. Yeah.
And Rebbitzin, can I ask, in your family, do you remember other refugees who came from Germany? Did they come and visit your family, or?
We had some. I told you my mother had a sort of boarding house. And some people, some men, they came every day to London, and then they came in the evening. They came back again, and we had the ones who could go to school went to school, and my mother. It was about 30 people there, men and families and children. It was a big house, and I remember we had a good time. Yes.
And a lot of the people that came, were they also refugees from?
Not always. Some were English, but and some of them were refugees, but not. I don't really read the people who came. I didn't remember them as for yeah.
And Rebbitzin, can I ask, during this time, did you know what was happening in Europe, what the Germans were doing? Did you have any idea of the Shoah, what was going on?
I think so, but I was not so knowledgeable. But people did suspect something. I don't think they knew exactly the what was happening. That I mean, after the war, when people came to the concentration camps, I don't think they knew exactly how terrible it was. People were afraid, but I don't think they knew how people were there. Yeah, that came last. When you heard the BBC, when we saw afterwards what was there. Yeah.
And do you remember V-Day when
Yes,
the war
I
ended?
remember. Yes, we did. We were given 2 days off school, and it was very nice, beautiful. That was in May, and then June and July we finished school, and then September we went to London, and that's when we disbanded this big house where we lived. Everybody went away to London. Yeah. Yes, my father didn't want to stay there. Once the war was over, we came to London. Yeah, and then I still had 2 years of school, and then I went to SEM, and then I started teaching.
And where was the SEM?
In London. We had the London SEM. Yes, I went to there. That's where Rabbi Duna. That's Rabbi Duna. He made a SEM in London, and that seminary is still his nephew. That's my son-in-law. He's still there. That seminary is there. Yes.
And you went to Rav Duna's SEM, and I think
Duna.
Rav Schoenfeld helped bring the Duna family to England. He was instrumental as well.
He may have done. Yes, I don't know exactly. This was Rabbi Duna. Remember him? Yeah. He was the principal of the school. Yeah.
And now you have your son-in-law as a Duna.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's his nephew.
His nephew.
This Rabbi Duna's brother. It was the father of my son-in-law. Yeah. And he's also Duna. Yeah. That's my
very
daughter, who is now still living in London. She and the oldest daughter is also in London. The others are all here. My other family.
And Rebbitzin, if I can just ask you,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of questions about the Kindertransport, and a lot of questions why England didn't allow with the white paper Yidden to go to Eretz Israel. Were you aware of what was happening?
No. I don't know anything of what they had, no.
And when they had the petition plan in 48, when the country was declared, do you remember?
Then, yes, I remember. I think that was the time when my father decided that he wants to become British in 1948. So he felt he didn't want to be forced to leave. But I don't know anything about the politics there. None. I don't know.
But growing up in Stamford Hill, it was a good Jewish life.
Yes, it was a very good Jewish life, especially when we were there. And in 1956, there's a whole of from Hungary. A lot of people came, and there was Jewish life was very, very very active in Stamford Hill. Very much now.
And you spent many years in England till you came here.
Yes.
Did you ever experience anti-Semitism when you were in England?
Yes.
For your children?
Yeah. Yes, a little bit. Yeah. They did. Once my husband, he was he was walking along and somebody said something, I don't know what, and threw a yogurt or something on his arm. And then once my husband also said that he was going to shul once in the Shabbos morning, and then some Arab came up to him and said, "Why do you kill pious Palestinians?" And my husband was very scared because there was nobody there. It was early in the morning on the Shabbos. So he said, "I live here in Linden. I in England. I don't know anything about what's gone in Palestine." And he went off. He didn't.
And Rebbitzin, does it worry you now? Because now we see what's happening in England with the marches, and there's a lot of anti-Jewish, anti-Israel feeling.
Yeah. So what are you asking me?
Do you worry what's happening in England?
No, I don't worry. Hashem is looking after us. Really, and also
Hashem runs the world.
Yes, he runs, and also somehow in Eretz Yisrael we also have people who hate us and don't like. Hashem is looking after us. I don't think it worries me. I don't think so. We can't.
If we know that Hashem's running the world.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But your message is so profound and so special that we should just have shalom between all of us and no machloket.
Also, absolutely.
Rebbitzin, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So Rav, this is a pencil drawing, and this is of
the Ochlenair, the Reb Yaakov Ettlinger. He wrote a lot of stories, he's very famous. He wrote on Lulav and Sukkah, Pikur Yankov. Yeah, he's well known of one of the later...
and when was this?
This is taken...
Was that photography
1880?
Well, it's after. I think
1870. I don't know what it was taken.
Queen with Victoria.
The thing is, he was really the very last ones for the German big ones, giants.
And this was your mishpacha. This is...
Well, he is the grandfather of my grandmother.
Sure.
I'll take it if I may.
It's amazing. Rebbitzin, if you could hold the picture. There's definitely a resemblance. Sure.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So Rebbitzin, can I ask you, what message do you impart, do you give to your children and grandchildren and to the future generations?
What message? Just to have, I think, to have shalom, to be peaceful, every, to not to have machloikas, not to have. I think that's very more. I think the most important thing, just to have peace and be kind, and to have,
It's a wonderful message.
Yeah, I think
Rebbitzin, can I ask, have you ever gone back to Germany? Have you ever been back to Frankfurt?
Once, I think. Yeah, my husband went, and then I also saw, but I don't remember anything.
Was it difficult to go back?
I wouldn't like to stay there, but we just once went there. Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you went back, did you manage to see the Kfarim of?
I think once. I'm not sure. I don't know whether I remember that. I don't know.
But it's such a lovely message to have shalom and to know machloket.
Yes, yeah.
And I just want to thank you, Rebbitzin, if I can just... So I am so incredibly grateful to you.
Let's go
to the chief. Yeah. So, Rebbitzin, I just have to mention that with you and your dear husband, for anyone who's watching, your husband is the world authority on mikvot.
Yes, he is.
And he's still, it's incredible. He goes all over, he's been, I think, to every continent.
I think so, yeah.
And to so many different countries. And when I speak to people in South Africa, in England, in America, everybody knows Rav Posen.
Yes, they do.
And he's the most sanua, and you have the most amazing family. Yeah. And it's been for me such a zchut to have you and your husband as patients and your children and grandchildren. it's such a schut, and I'm so grateful for you.
Yes.
And thank you so
very
much for sharing such an amazing story. It's nissim. It's that your parents decided to leave. Baruch Hashem.
It really was nissim. Real nissim. Yes.
Wow. So you should just have mazel and bracha from all your family. You have a very, very dear and special family.
Thank you very
much. And I'm
much.
exceptionally fond of your husband and all your family.
Yes.
So Rebbitzin, thank you very much.
Thank you.